Let's talk about ledgers or event sourcing. This is for keeping track of values without having to record the total number and the transactions separately. You can keep the transactions in a ledger with increments and decrements, adding and subtracting to and from the ledger, and then just total the ledger up every time you want to know what the current balance is. This makes it very easy to keep a long list of transactions up to date, especially if they can be added to and subtracted from by multiple users or multiple systems, and know that you've always got the right total. Because you can just look at the ledger and see like, okay, that added, that subtracted, that added, that subtracted, and you can total it up and know like, okay, this is the balance because I can see the full history. And so I've got a few functions here that I'm just showing as an example where you pass in the whole ledger, and the string here is just a timestamp. And then if you're doing something that's like accumulating over time or even decrementing over time, you can just have like an amount per second. And so I use this for charging when a ship goes to a sun or goes to resources and it's accumulating an amount it's harvesting or charging. I just have an amount per second. So this could be like 1,000 per actually millisecond here, which would be 1 per second. And so they're sitting there and you can see the number go up even though I didn't add anything to the database. I didn't have to update the number once. That's one of the beauties of this, is that if you have something that just needs to do something at an increment over time, you use this string to say when you started, and then you use this number to say how much per second, and then you use the current time to calculate. And so we'll see that here. This ledger accumulator gets the current timestamp, which is right now, and then it gets the timestamp of each ledger item. This is the total here. And then the ledger item, if it has an amount per second, if it has an end at, then we know that it was accumulating over a period of time and then it stopped. Again, the beauty of this is that's only in the database with 2 numbers, and you know exactly how much it accumulated over time. And so if they have ended at, then we know that it accumulated starting at this initial timestamp, ending at this timestamp, times the amount per second, amount per millisecond, and you have the total that they got during that accumulation period. And if they don't have ended at, then you know they're still accumulating, and so you can just use the current timestamp. If the end at exists, use the end at or date.now. Now this is another weird thing I did here. And you can read the comments here. Ended at could be in the future because we calculate it based on capacity. So we use the current time as the ended at in the future. So if you're charging up and you want to have a max amount that you can charge up, and so say you can charge to 100, you're currently at 10, and you want it to charge over time, you can go ahead and set the end at the value that at the time it would be at 100, and use this accumulator to kind of track up to that point. So it's at 10% now, it's at 20% now, it's at 30% now. But you know once it gets to end at, this min function is going to use that last end at as soon as it gets to that. As soon as this becomes less than now, meaning now has moved past end at, it's going to use the end at. And so you can kind of set a total capacity that something can accumulate over time. And if end at isn't set, we just use the current timestamp, which means it's still charging. And you subtract from the time that it started to get the difference, which would give you the number of milliseconds you want to multiply times the amount per millisecond. And then you just add that to the total. And so you go through this list of entries. And so these entries, it's really just like a record of amount per second and end at. And that's the time one. The sum one is simple. You can just do this as a positive or negative number. And then as you do the accumulation, if it's not a time ledger item, it's just a regular item, the amount that you want to add could be a positive or negative number, which would move the accumulator up or down. And that's very simple. And so that's the gist of it. You could probably get most of your resource management done in this way and not have to run a process on a server in the background updating numbers all the time. You don't have to update the database at all. Hopefully this was helpful to anyone looking to use a ledger system. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll talk to you later.